What is going on, Swoopers? Welcome back to another episode of Swoop Luke, and it's actually a very special episode. I think in the 3 years that I'm doing this, this is a first where I've had an opposition supporter come on and we can have a chat about it. So, Todd, welcome. Thank you for popping my cherry, I guess.
Oh, absolute pleasure, mate. Yeah, it's not exaggeration when I say I'm a huge fan of yours, mate. Love the content, and it's been awesome to get the opportunity to collaborate. And what better time to do it than ANZAC Day?
Yeah, exactly. And for those who don't follow me on Twitter, and me and Todd have been we go back a couple of years now on Twitter, following each other. And Todd's a huge Essendon supporter, so yeah, like you said, perfect time to jump on. And both our teams need this win really, really badly, don't we?
Yeah, I think probably Essendon more so than Collingwood. I mean, even in your losses, you've been really good. I thought, against Geelong, you were pretty unlucky, and there was some pretty ordinary decisions a few weeks back that went against you guys. But Essendon's just been awful, and I know you joked about it, saying that we'll probably switch on and go well on Anzac Day, but I'm not too sure, mate. I'm really not sure.
So just on that, so you're sitting 1-4. I think you're 15th or 16th on the ladder, and you guys were tipped to make finals again. What do you think has gone wrong this first quarter of the season?
Yeah, it's hard to place a finger on it. So it's just there's been some key injuries to players that you just would expect to be coming in. So there's big hype around Jake Stringer, and then he gets injured just on the eve of the season. Obviously, the syndesmosis injury to Zach Merritt's a huge out. But just it's just hard to really pinpoint what it is. There's just a lack of cohesion in the team. The team defense was really highlighted last week against Fremantle, how disjointed and the lack of effort. But as an objective fan yourself, what have you made of Essendon so far? I'd really love to hear your thoughts on it.
So yeah, look, as everyone's probably aware, you always want as a neutral, you kind of want the best team on the park all the time, as long as they're not coming up against your team. You know what I mean? So yeah, like you said, with Essendon's couple of Essendon's injuries and stuff, it does hurt, and other teams have that as well. And I had Essendon. I'm pretty sure I had Essendon in my top 8 because they were exciting towards the end of the year, the back end of last year. They were exciting, and there's that running joke of not being able to not having won a final in however many days, but like you kind of, when you were playing that good football that you were last season, and then making that final and go, okay, there might be a chance here. And it's not every day where a team finishes outside of the 8 and down somewhere bottom 6 sort of stuff, comes out next year, wins a couple of finals and sets the world on fire. But you guys were building, and then you got just lost that momentum this year. And as much as I love to see it as a Collingwood supporter, as just a lover of football, you want your good teams and your big 4 Victorian teams. So Essendon, Carlton, Richmond, Collingwood. You want them all to be good at the same time. And I don't think they have been. Now Carlton's coming good. They've sapped your life energy a little bit.
Yeah, and I think you'd probably agree with this. The Collingwood has probably mirrored what Essendon should have been this year, like a very exciting team. They're not necessarily going to put it all together week in, week out, but You've got to get supreme effort, and you're going to get some really good performances from young kids. And, got Patrick Lipinski coming in, and he's just been a great catalyst for you guys. And unfortunately, Essendon just hasn't been able to find that cohesion yet. But it's, like you said, it's something this first quarter of the season. There's plenty left to go.
Yeah, and Heppel came out today in that Anzac Day and conference with Lipinski and everyone like that, penalty and stuff. And he did say that finals are still on the horizon. At 1-4, what do you think I know he's the captain, and he's got to come out and say something like that. He's not going to say, finals are no chance. We're just going to rebuild this season. What do you think? Maybe take finals out of the equation, but what do you think now is a win for the rest of the season?
It is getting some gains to the young kids and maybe potentially pushing for the 8, because if you actually look at the record, you wouldn't expect Essendon to be coming up against teams like Brisbane, Geelong, Melbourne, and being competitive. And then again, Fremantle's like the form team of the competition, I think. The loss was pretty pathetic, and they should be pretty disappointed. But like even their win against Adelaide, on face value, it didn't look that great. But then they came out and beat Richmond really well the next week. So who knows with Essendon? It's it's just got to be about progression now and maybe getting those defensive structures back in place and, being a competitive team.
And what have you liked? We talked about, where you guys sit and stuff, but what has been one of your positives for this season?
Oh, it's definitely the form of Nick Martin. I mean, he, along with your man Dacos, I think and Horn Francis, I think they've been the three standouts for me. I can't believe that a guy like Nick Martin was potentially not going to get picked up because he was like one of the last guys that we brought in along with Tex Wanganeen. And his form's been sensational. And he arguably would be probably top three in the Essendon best and fairest, which probably tells you exactly where we're at. But he's been terrific.
And Martin, remind me, did he kick 5 in that first game?
Yeah, 5 on debut.
Yeah, so that's a crazy stat, and something that, like you said, as a young kid and one of the last in the draft and stuff like that, he plays on this big stage, and he's going to play in front of at least 85,000 people on Monday.
Yeah, it's an incredible achievement, isn't it? And he's going to go in as probably one of Essendon's more important players, unless guys like McGrath and Parrish can stand up, but. He's bringing excitement to the club and excitement to the fans, which has been bereft for the last, month of the footy. So we'll see how we go. But just on the young kids, what have you made outside of Dacos? What have you made of the young guys coming in? I mean, Ginnivan's made a big impact. I mean, he's been there for a year or so now. But, what have you made about the impact he's made and, the kind of the fanfare that's been around with the way he antagonises the opposition?
Look, I think every team sort of has a Ginnivan. He came out in a interview, a stop-by interview at training a couple of weeks ago, and he says that's his role in the team to be that sort of player. Toby Green was that player. Waitman for the Bulldogs is, and throughout the years there's been a couple of other players like that. But putting that aside, he kind of reminds me of like a Jared Blair or a Didak in the way that Didak not as like special with his goals and shimmies and stuff like that, but just the way that he can shark the ball. And he's a genuine small forward. Jamie Elliott has been touted as a small forward, but we know that he can play tall because, he's leading out of the goal square at times. He plays taller than he is. We haven't had, in my opinion anyway, we haven't had a genuine small forward like that in a long time. Bo McCreary is another one as well. So you have Bo and Ginnivan in the same side, and they will be coming in on ANZAC Day. That's huge. And you look back only last week against the Lions, we had 5 players over 200 centimeters, and 3 of those were forwards. And no one down below to get those balls. So it does help. But of the new kids, we still Finn McRae, Caleb Poulter, Trent Bianco, they're still in the twos, and with a stacked midfield like we have, it's hard for them to kind of get games unless injuries and stuff. And Nick Dacos as well has just been phenomenal, but he's not going to have too many bad games that push him down to the VFL. So these guys have just got to keep playing their trade. But it's exciting. Like our list is made up of pretty much under 23-year-olds. And to do what we've been doing, to play the way we've been playing with 6 months of a new coach is incredible.
Yeah, completely agree. And, the one guy that's really impressed me, he was terrific against Brisbane. And by the way, I didn't think you guys got anywhere near enough credit for how fantastic you were against Brisbane. I thought, the way they demolished North Melbourne, I thought that could be a similar scenario to Collingwood. But you guys arguably could have won that game. But Reece McGuinness, he looks like an absolute class act. I didn't realise he was such a good forward, a leading target. But he could be probably second best young player in my opinion. He just looks like such a player.
Yeah, and the thing with Reef is when we picked him up, he was touted as the best kind of pickup that Collingwood had, and in that draft we had Henry, McRae, and all these sort of guys. And he went down with an ankle injury. He had a finger injury, I think another leg injury. So, he's only really done 2 preseasons, mainly this preseason as the one where he's hitting the gym more during the off season and stuff like that. And, you don't really see it, and I didn't find out till I was doing the preview, but he's like 196 centimeters tall. And, he doesn't look like a big sort of like a tall player, maybe because of his, thin sort of build. But I was saying in my review of the game where he could be a second prong forward, 196 centimeters. That's I think Jack Rewalt's around that height. Jeremy Cameron's around that height. And we know they're bigger sort of bodies, and maybe Reef wants to be. I think Cripps is 196, 197, or maybe not that tall, but he goes through the middle, and so does Pendlebury and stuff like that around that height. Maybe he wants to be a big-bodied midfielder. But yeah, like you said, he's probably the best kid we've got going around at the moment, besides, Dacos in the team. And him and Kruger, both around that 200 centimeter, they could be. You wouldn't think it, but maybe that's a hybrid sort of forward.
Yeah, and it's a testament to the recruiting department at Collingwood. Like, you guys got absolutely destroyed from when the Treloar and Stevenson trades went down. But, it's a masterstroke at this point. The young kids that have come in, like Ollie Henry, arguably one of the best young forwards going around. Like, his forecast's brilliant. And, you can't fault Collingwood at any stage for that in hindsight. It was, just brilliant. And unfortunately for Stevenson, he's not been able to replicate that at North Melbourne. Yeah. But, it's terrific to see for Collingwood fans. And, McRae, he's just instilled this belief in the team that, you'd think it'd take 2 to 3 years to come about.
Yeah, and like you said, and it's just been phenomenal. And I guess you can say the same thing with Rutten as well, being such a young coach. And okay, this start of the year has been a bit of an outlier. But last year, you guys were producing good football, fast football, attacking football, and I dare say you guys get back to it. But in saying that, I hope you don't get back to it on Monday at ANZAC, the big ANZAC Day clash. What are your thoughts leading into that game?
It's really interesting. Both teams have got something to prove. I mean, the heat's been put on Grundy, so he's going to come out. He always plays well against Essendon, so there's going to be some incentive there. And the way De Goey is playing at the moment, what is he, like top 5 in the coaches' votes, I think. So he's dominating. And then for Essendon, so Parrish obviously needs a huge game after those defensive efforts that were highlighted. Unfortunately, Stringer won't come back, which is a huge loss. But Essendon's got so much to prove. It's going to be a fascinating contest, and I think the contest between Sam Draper and Brody Grundy might decide the game.
Yeah, and in saying that with Draper, because Phillips got injured last week, is that correct? And he's your number one, isn't he, Ruckman, or is it Draper now?
It was Draper, but he was Phillips was coming in and giving a chop out. He was playing very well. He was pretty dominant against Adelaide, so it was a huge loss. And maybe it's time for him to step up now, Draper, and prove he's in the top 5-10 ruckman in the league.
Yeah, and look, it's funny you should say that about Brody Grundy. There's been numerous articles about him, and there's always a correlation where a player gets written something bad about him or a team, and they come out and prove the article wrong. And the thing with Grundy is, at his best, he's a top 2, top 3 ruckman. But with Draper, I feel, and from what I've seen, I don't watch a lot of Essendon games, admittedly, but from what I've seen, from what I do watch, he's very physical, and he likes to get up into people's faces, and Grundy doesn't like that. So that, like you said, that could decide the game, because I was looking at the stats just before, and our clearance work is kind of the same Essendon and Collingwood. So I think that will go far, and not just centre clearances. That's stoppages near goals, and we don't really have that chop out if Cameron doesn't come up with his ribs or he doesn't get chosen.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I'd love to get your thoughts too on Pendlebury. What have you made of the move to half back? And do you think it's time that McRae just slots him back in the middle? I mean, because he's that calming influence, and sometimes late in games, it seems like Collingwood kind of needs someone to calm things down, especially like when the game gets tight. He's got those silky skills, but he has. I remember against Geelong, especially, like he turned the ball over at half back, probably decided the game. What are your thoughts? Would you keep him at half back, or would you move him into the middle?
I love him. I love him. I've been calling him for half back, that sort of quarterback sort of position, for a while now. But it's hard because, like you said, he is that. We all talk about his time and space that he has when he has the ball and stuff. And I think maybe late in quarters or late in the game, he does have to get chucked into that middle. And Crisp, I know, gets in there. Maynard is trying to push into the middle as well, and even Nick Dacos. But there's 3 half backers. Or 2.5 if you don't really include Dacos, that can switch for Pendlebury. But what he provides off that half back line, he's just an elite user of the ball. And I guess that's why he's down back, because our back line has been a little bit ravaged. We won't have Roughhead, Howe won't be playing that floating role, so he's a one-on-one defender. So you need that sort of that strong, resilient head like Pendlebury, but then you're losing Pendlebury in the middle. So it is a bit of a catch-22. It's like when Buckley used to put Darcy Moore up forward for 3/4 of the game, and then chuck him down back. He's an all-Australian defender, and I know McRae did that, but I like that he did it when the game needed to be won in that last quarter, and he kicked 2 goals. It paid off. Because at that point, you're trying to win the game, not protect the lead. So I think it was good. But yeah, Pendlebury, I don't know. He's great off the half back line. It's a new role for him. So hopefully he starts in the middle on the weekend though, to kind of stamp his authority on those new kids.
Yeah, especially, and he loves that ANZAC Day game. Has he won like 3 ANZAC medals, or is it 4?
Yeah, I think it might be 4. Yeah.
Yeah. So he loves the game, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think, it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Our backline's been pretty ordinary, but yeah, so I think it might even be prudent to put Darcy Moore forward, because it will really stretch that Essendon defense. It's been relying on like Laverdo, who's actually undersized. And I went to the game with Jasper from the Inner Sanctum on the weekend, and we just noticed that he was playing up against Tabernar, and there was like a good 10 to 20 centimeters difference in the height. And it was just like, he's great one-on-one, but like that height will just do him every time. But, for you guys, without Roughhead, what do you think about the matchup on Peter Wright? Would you send Imagine to him? Because I know he's been a bit of a whipping boy for the Pies fans, but, like Peter Wright's been in great form, and he's probably the key for us up forward.
Look, I'm pretty resigned to the fact that Wright's probably going to kick 4 or 5 goals on the weekend, just because it doesn't really matter who we put on him. We don't have, Darcy Moore is a great defender, but he's not a one-on-one defender. And I've said this multiple times, Jeremy Howe isn't a good one-on-one defender at all. They're more floating defenders, and that's just the modern game. They start 5-6 meters off their opponent and then run in. Imagine is probably our only real true one-on-one defender without Roughhead being there. So yeah, look, Wright probably does get Imagine on him, and I'm happy for Imagine to give him, 2 or 3 goals, because we don't have another option for him. You're not going to stick Darcy Moore on Wright or Howe on Wright, and then lose that run, lose that intercept marking ability. There's just no one else that we can put on him. And I know last year Maynard lined up on Buddy Franklin for a couple of quarters, but you don't want to, like I said, you don't want to cut that run off just to stop Wright from kicking more than 3 goals. You may as well give him 2 or 3 goals on Imagine, and be able to produce attacks and produce counter attacks.
Yeah, it's a great point too. And Imagine is pretty maligned by Collingwood fans and probably the outside public, but he is capable of like producing like a pretty like stifling effort on forwards. I mean, Peter Wright is going to be impossible to beat if the ball's put up in the air and he has a clean run at it. But like Imagine, he's going to be dependable, and he always gives you everything he's got. So that's going to be a really interesting contest. But I'm really fearful of what's going to happen on Monday. Honestly, mate, I think you guys could really do a number on us if we don't come in switched on from the get-go.
And that's it. There's been, and we'll talk about it a little bit later about favorite ANZAC Day games and stuff like that. But ANZAC Day we all talk about it, how it's like a final and it's a different game going in. And you're right, this could be a game decided by under 6 points, or it could be a game decided by over 6 goals. So you don't really know. I just wanted to touch on before at the start, you talked about Parrish and how he's been a bit down on form, and there was that vision going around on Twitter and all the Footy Classified and all those sort of shows of just his work rate, and there was a lot of talk about Essendon's work rate. Do you think that is something that can, they see that and they go, okay, this is where we need to kick into gear? Do you see that happening against the Pies on Monday?
Oh, I hope so. You'd think that, Pride would kick in and you'd say that, I look at that defensive effort and you say, that's not good enough. You were a true Brownlow medal contender, and you went into this season, with a fresh contract and, hopefully one of the premier midfielders in the game. And you just look at that effort, and that's unacceptable from a first-year player, let alone a guy of his caliber. But, I'd love to get your thoughts on this specifically. But some of these things can be a little bit misleading. Like, you don't see the the build up to that. Like
Yeah.
Parrish could have been on the ground for 15 straight minutes, chased all game, and then they take this little part of it and say, okay, well that's not good enough. It does look bad in isolation, but there is sometimes context with those things. I'm just like, what do you think that they should give the whole context for that sort of thing, or do you think it's more clickbait sort of stuff?
Look, it definitely is clickbait sort of stuff, and just to bring it back full circle to Magin, how he's been whipping boy and stuff. I thought he did really good against the Lions, and then he has this one sort of brain fade where in the last 5-6 minutes, he ball's coming into the defensive 50, he spoils it, and goes right out of bounds. Obviously, a deliberate out of bounds, and then media, everyone, Twitter, social media, they gather to that one instance, and that's what they base their whole thoughts on. And it's the same as Parrish, like you said. Look, I saw that vision. I go, geez, that's pretty bad. Like that's a bad effort. He just was walking at one stage. But like you said, he could have been running for 15, 20 minutes, up and down, box to box, midfielder, chasing, and not getting a rest like they usually do. And he was just dead. He couldn't turn around or something. If he had just come off the subs bench and he did that, sure, let's grind him for that, But they don't tell the full story, and they're never going to. Like you said, it's you're in the with Inner Sanctum and stuff. You're in the journalist sort of game, and you see it all, and you see it all on Twitter as well. It's just all clickbait. That's all it is, mate. It's just revenue for them at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And back on what you were saying about Magin, I thought it was like really terrific. You went into bat for him. You were saying, like this is not on Magin that we lost this game. It was like the whole myriad of scenarios and situations that happen. And it's the same. Like every club has got those 2 or 3 players. It's like everyone wants to blame them for a loss, but like sometimes you have to look at the whole picture and not just like contextualize one small aspect of the game. Like you said, I thought Magin was terrific because I took really fine notice of him on that game because, I'm always interested in the guys that get maligned by Twitter and, specific fans. And I thought he was really good. And, like one brain fade doesn't mean he's had an ordinary game. Yeah.
No, exactly. That's exactly right. Like you said it best. Like you can, and I always take this as, and I use this as an example all the time. The Collingwood 2018 grand final. I know we're straying off the path of ANZAC Day, and we'll get back onto it, but this is just train of thought sort of stuff here, where, okay, doesn't matter if Maynard was held or not, Domshe kicks that goal and they win. We didn't lose because Domshe kicked that goal. We didn't lose because Jordan De Goey didn't man up on McGovern and McGovern took that intercept mark. You bring it back. You never lose from one specific thing. There's always actions to consequences. Yeah, Domshe's goal, we obviously lost because of that, because he kicked the goal and they're winning. But you're giving up a 5-goal buffer in a grand final. The Brisbane Lion game, we let them kick 6 goals in that second quarter without kicking one, and then you have to work 6 goals. You have to kick 7 goals to be in front. So you have to work your way back, and they're not going to just kick no goals. And it's just all these little things that we can pick and choose clips on and replay them on every single news channel. But that's just what it is. It's just clicks. It's just clickbait, and we don't have, we're not taking into account everything that happened prior. But that's just the game that we're in, and us as fans, I feel like we just have to be better than that. And sometimes we're not. And I cop shit and I give shit for it as well. On you see it all the time on Twitter for umpiring decisions and stuff. But it is what it is, and we just have to be better than the media at this stage.
Yeah, and like I'm always going to come in and be a big advocate for you, mate. I love the way you go about it. But you're exactly right. Like I've never seen you do something like on Twitter that like is trying to incite a reaction, trying to like play to the masses. It's always like raw emotion. That's why people love your channel, and that's why like you said, you're doing better than the mass media. You're not catering to like trying to get as much furor as you can. You're not trying to like incite an argument. You're just talking from a fan's perspective, and that's why people love you, mate.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Look, let's get back to ANZAC Day while we're all here. What is your favorite ANZAC Day game that you've seen live or that you've just seen?
Oh,
I think I know what it is.
2009.
Tell me.
Yeah, 2009. Can't go past it. Yeah. Big Fires fan I went down with, mate of mine from down in Albury. We used to go to every ANZAC Day game together. Yeah, like 5 minutes to go. You just did you go to that game, by the way?
No, 2009, I would have been in year. Oh no, I would have been maybe year 10 or year 11. I think I watched it with Dad at home with some family.
Yeah. So this one, I've got a good story with this one too. So one of my mates had a engagement party this day, and he said, like, invited me to it, and I said, "Nah, I'm gonna go to ANZAC Day." And then eventually, I went to that game and like never regret it. But I got uninvited from the wedding, so
That's fair enough.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. I got Cesar Arcus, but yeah, it was one of the most incredible games of footy I've ever seen. Like that in terms of like live footy. Like 5 minutes to go, it was like people were leaving, and then it was like the loudest noise I've ever heard in my life when Zarakis kicked the goal. And it's incredible. And I was talking this with people at work. I mean, you guys just dominated this fixture for the past 12 years, but this used to be like the James Hird, Nathan Buckley show every year. It used to be such a great contest. And, you know, hopefully we get back to that stage where it's like maybe De Goey versus Stringer for the next 5 years, where it's just like these great personalities that just, you know, capture the imagination. But what's the ANZAC Day that springs to mind for you? I'm thinking that maybe that Jared Blair kick out of the air might be yours.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, and it's exactly like that. It's exactly like that Zaharakis goal. There's nothing better than winning it with like the last kick or right at the end. And the thing I loved about Blair, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, or someone will correct me if I'm wrong, that might have been either the first year or the second year that they brought in the video review.
First year.
Yeah, so no one really knew what the hell was going on. And it was only like, round 5 or round 6 when it happened. So it was just, and, you know, even though the video refs now, the vision is still shocking, imagine what it was all those years ago as well, you know what I mean? So coming off his shin or whatever it came off, it was just, it was so good because you're celebrating and then you're going, okay, wait, bang. It was like 2 celebrations. It was like kicking, 2 goals in 30 seconds. Yeah, it was great. And obviously you can't go past Swanee with those couple of goals or 3 goals on 2 or 3 goals on ANZAC Day as well. But, you know, talking about Parrish and ANZAC Day and personalities, he played a ripper last year. He finished with the ANZAC Day medal.
Yeah, that was his really breakout game. It's like, I don't know what you thought, but I went back and watched this, like just check the stats. And after the game, I was like, wow, I didn't realize he had that many disposals. But like, it was just his presence around goal too. I mean, he kicked Essendon's first goal and then he kicked the stealer late in the game. And, you know, it really was his breakout game. And, you know, it was like the first of many, you know, individual medals he won for games. But, you know, maybe it's the catalyst for him this year where he turns his season around and gets it done on Anzac Day. I hope for Essendon's sake that's the case.
And that's what I love about Anzac Day. Look, it can make, you know, like I said, doesn't matter where the teams are coming from. We could be first or last. You could be first or last. We could be both last, you know, 78 days. And it's still played like a grand final, you know, even if another team gets done by 60 points or whatever, it's still played with that finals atmosphere. But there's been a lot of cult heroes that have won Anzac Day medals. Who do you think would be a smoky to win the Anzac Day medal, and why?
That's a great question. Do you have anyone that springs to mind so I can have a think about it?
Okay. I was expecting you to answer it first. Okay. Look, I know we've had, you know, penalties obviously in the past and Adam Treloar and stuff like that. I don't think a big forward might get it, and I reckon it could be someone if I was just going for a random player that embodies the spirits of, you know, the spirit of the Anzac and everything that this game is built up to be. I think it could be Bo McCreary or Nathan Kruger, because like I said on my review of the Lions game, those 2 players, they've only played a handful of games for the Pies, but they embody the black and white spirit and they know what those stripes mean when they go on their back. And Bo is just someone, and look, I know we don't like, you know, using war terminology and stuff like that, and you know, it is a beautiful day to celebrate the fallen and stuff. But Bo is someone that you could get behind in a battle, because you know that you can give your life to him, and he's going to protect it at all costs. And I think that if we're going for that sort of, the player that doesn't have 40 disposals, the player that doesn't kick 4 goals, for someone to embody that spirit, I think it's Brody Grundy or Nathan Kruger as my smokies.
That's a great call. And, last year, Darcy Cameron almost popped up and got the job done for you guys. I think if Collingwood had won, I think he would have been a pretty good candidate. But on our side of things, I think probably go someone like Archie Perkins. I mean, he was like really disappointing last week against Fremantle, and he needs to step up big time. He's got that class around goal that like really catches the eye of like voters, and he has the ability to accumulate too, and he's like a very flashy player. He's a guy I think can step up and have a crack. But and then going on your methodology with thinking, maybe someone like Jaden Laverde is like just from the defense, cutting off, setting up attacks. He's someone who like will go back with the flight, get hit. Like you said, it's tough to do that war terminology and do it. But like he's the guy like Bo McCreary who will go into battle for you, and you'd love to be in the trenches next to him. So Laverde or Perkins would be the two for me, I think.
All right, that's it's good there's something good to keep our eye on coming up. Look, I want to talk quickly just about we talked a little bit about Peter Wright and stuff. Now Mason Cox is another. We talk about imagine being a whipping boy. Mason Cox lately has been that guy as well, and there's shouts from supporters to not give him another game. The American experiment is done, but then you think back, and let's take out that Richmond game, out of the equation for a second. He debuted in the Anzac Day game. He kicked the first goal in that Anzac Day game. You were saying, and this is, if I was McRae, if I was a selector, you're saying that you're undermanned in the back line. You're saying to send Darcy Moore there to kind of stretch that back line, and Laverde was giving away, 10 to 15 centimeters on Taberner. If Cox plays, do you think you guys are able to man up on him and are a good shout?
I don't think so, but it's entirely dependent on how you guys play. I think with Mason Cox, if he gets the opportunity to run and jump at the ball, he's almost impossible to stop, much like Peter Wright. But if it's one-on-one body contest, you'd see it yourself week in, week out. He can get out-bodied very easily, and like that's just by virtue of the fact that he didn't grow up with the game and maybe doesn't know the body position as well. But I'm a big fan of like backing guys in, and like Mason Cox didn't play well against Brisbane. You say like we've seen you do it before. I mean, he played terrific in that 2018 grand final. I thought there's plenty of times, and like that Richmond game, like you can always go back to that and say this is what this guy's actually capable of. But back him in and stretched out Essendon back line. That's exactly what I would do.
Yeah, and I think that's I think that's what's going to happen. Kruger, Cox, maybe they went a little bit too tall last week against the Lions, but it might be. I haven't checked the weather, but it might be a wet Anzac Day game. It like I said, it all depends on the weather as well. If it's dry, you're gonna want a 3 tall, attack. If it's wet, it's a whole different story. But these are the things that we don't get paid for. We don't get paid at all, unfortunately. So we leave that up to the selectors.
Yeah, unfortunately, you and I don't get to pick on Monday, but I'd love to. But it's going to be really, really interesting. Just quickly touching on Mason Cox, what do you make of the discussion around the goggles he's got? Because like I know Collingwood got kind of smashed for defending him because like I didn't understand the connection between people saying they do better reporting Mason Cox, like they were like basically saying it's hypocritical and all that, but. I thought it was really good that they came out and defended him, like and said, like there is banter in footy, but like at the same time, if you're like a young kid and you have to wear those protective goggles or you've got like bad eyesight, it's like, it would be pretty deflating to see guys like Jason Dunstall like smashing him on the coverage for that. Like, what are your thoughts? Were you pretty proud of the way Collingwood came out and defended him?
Oh, look, 100%. And whenever Collingwood do something like that, and this is probably one of the first times I've seen it, come out in defense of one of our players, and Fox Footy ended up deleting that tweet and whatever. But everyone. The thing about the internet is everyone has an opinion. You know what I mean? And everyone's allowed to give their opinion behind an anonymous account without blue ticks. And there's always going to be, you know, one or two. There was definitely more than one or two just idiots that do that. You know, it's a separate. That do better report is so separate to the Pies saying to a media personality, hey, don't just be better. Like, don't, like you said, if there's a kid, like I remember a couple of years ago, we had drafted a kid, Sam McClarty. I don't know if you remember. And I think he had a hearing aid in one of his ear, or a hearing implant. It was something like that. He only lasted a couple of years on the list, but that's what I'm getting at. But you know, let's just say, for example, he comes out and he's playing a game, and you know, the ball comes to him, he can't see where it is, or whatever, he has no awareness, or whatever it may be. And Jason Dunstall, or whoever it is, says, oh, it's because, you know, definitely, you know, it's the minority that, like, we're trying to give these people that don't have a voice. You know, like you said, kid with goggles doesn't want to play anymore because everyone on TV is bagging Mason Cox. A guy that has got hearing aids doesn't want to play anymore because not that it happened, but a guy on TV. And the media have so much power to do good. And I know it's banter and it's a joke, but they just don't do good. And you know, Kane Corns is a big proponent of not doing good.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And it's like the Mason Cox thing, and like what you were saying about that draftee is like, these are things that they can't control. So it's like, I've always been a big advocate, you know, like it's fair game if someone like goes out there with pink boots or like dyes their hair blonde, and say, it's funny to make fun of that. It's like, because it's their choice if they want to draw attention to that. But Mason Cox is doing it for his own protection. I mean, was it like torn retina or something? It's
yeah,
like, it's really,
I think he had, like, you know, he had a bunch of surgeries on his eye. He was going to lose sight in one of his eyes, I think. So it's a very serious injury.
yeah, exactly right. So I don't see why that's something that he should be ridiculed for. But you know, like if that's the low hanging fruit they want to go after, then go ahead. It's just a sad testament to how Fox footy is like degenerated into something that's more clickbait rather than actually analysing the game.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, people like fans like us, like Blue Abroad, like True Footy, the St Kilda TV. It's all that stuff where we are the new generation, and we kind of just have to, and you see it on Twitter all the time, and I see you doing it all the time as well. We just have to do better and point people in the right direction. That, you know, it's not fun to, and it's not, if you can't say anything nice, just shut the hell up, you know. Like, it's not that hard. It's just got what, because it's going to generate clicks, because you're going to get a bunch of likes, because you're going to get a bunch of retweets. People are just going to know that you're a shit dude. Like, just like couldn't say better than Collingwood. Just be better.
Yeah, and there's banter, there's making fun of, you know, like Essendon for not winning finals for however long, Collingwood for not having, you know, full set of teeth, North Melbourne for not having lots of fans. But there's banter like that, and then there's like directly ridiculing people, making fun of people, like when they're disadvantaged or something. It's like there's a line that everyone should know not to cross, and sometimes we lose sight of that. And it's important that we, you know, like guys like myself, you, and you know, the other great people out there, just say, you know, like, hey, stop that, pull yourself up, and you know, like, show some respect.
And that's probably a good message to end on. But before we do, predictions for Monday's clash. Who have you got winning, and by how much?
We have to be biased here, so I'm going to have to do it. So I'll say Essendon by 18 points and Archie Perkins for the ANZAC medal with 3 goals. What about yourself?
You got Archie Perkins for 3 goals. Nice. All right, I've got the Pies by 34 points, and Nathan Kruger with the ANZAC Day medal.
Oh, big call. What have you made of him so far? You're pretty impressed with him?
Yeah. Man, I don't know if you saw my post this morning on my Instagram, Super, but I love the guy. He's only played 2 games for the Adelaide. Yeah, so 2 games for the Pies, and I think that I've heralded him as a savior already, because, like I said, he just epitomizes the black and white. For some guy that, you know, wasn't even drafted with Collingwood to know what it means to wear those stripes and go out there, you know, give his like 110% effort at every single contest. Even if he kicks 1 goal 4, you know that the next contest he's going to hit it hard, and he's not going to drop his head. And it's just everything you love to see. And he's a big big forward that we don't have, and we haven't had for a very long time.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. It's great for Pies fans. But yeah, thanks a lot, Swoop, for having me on. I can't wait to go to the game on Monday. Hopefully, you can catch up for a beer and have a chat. Yeah, maybe
Definitely.
even record something on the game.
No, definitely. And just before you do go, have you got anything to plug? I know you got a couple of things. Give us your Twitter. Give us your Inner Sanctum stuff. Well, let us know where we can find you.
So you can find me at theinnersanctum.com.au, at Todd J. Davey at Twitter. You'll see me around there talking a lot of shit with you, a lot of footy stuff, a lot of life stuff, a lot of Hank content, which is my little puppy. I know you love getting around him. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm just looking forward to a great game, and hopefully we can both put on a good contest because, it's my favorite game of the year. It's my favorite day of the year, really. We get to pay respects to why we live in such a free and awesome country. And, hopefully both teams can put on a good show, but more importantly, the people who have had connections to the ANZACs and everyone else can enjoy the game and, just remember the good times and, pay respects the way it should.
No, 100%. I could not have said it better myself. But Todd, thank you so much for coming on, man. Hopefully we can do this. Do we verse you guys twice this year?
I believe so, yeah.
Sweet. So we'll do this. We'll catch up again. Hopefully see you on Monday as well. But thank you so much. And Swoopers, make sure you go follow him. I'll put his links down below. But until next time, like, comment, subscribe. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets. And until next time, double shackers. I'll swoop you all later.